In today's video, what I want to talk about is the teeny everyday carry emergency kit, like problem solving kit. You're not going to believe what fits inside this little itty bitty case. So this case actually was for a lav mic and I didn't need it. So I've turned it into this little itty bitty travel emergency kit. Now I've had different versions of this. I've had it in a plastic bag. I've had it in a little plastic like clamshell thing. I've had one of those in my car, one for travel. But this one I particularly like because it's got some rigidity. It's got a zipper so I can compress it and fit a little bit more without it popping open. I don't have to hold it with rubber bands and stuff. And you're not going to believe everything that fits in this. So this is actually missing a couple things that I would recommend. And then there's going to be a follow-up video that's more comprehensive if you wanted to create a more extensive emergency kit. But this is like one that can literally fit in your purse. You can take it anywhere when you travel. This is a great option to cover a lot of bases. And I'm going to show you the individual pieces, and then at the end I'm going to lay it all out so you can see how much we're actually talking about. Now, there's pieces in here that you definitely could do differently, and I'd love to hear in the comments like what you would do or what you would add or what you would take out, and or if you have one of these yourself, like what do you put in yours? So as we open this up, I'm going to start with a like silicone hair tie around a couple of gloves. So I roll them up and I put a hair tie around them. So two things in one on that one. Then I have a little teeny tiny bit of earplugs. This one here is pretty amazing. This is actually a CPR mask. Now two times in my life I've actually had to do CPR. I've never had a mask. This is so tiny. I don't want to take it out because one, I don't want to contaminate it because it's in its own little plastic bag, but also because I don't know if I can get it this small again. Now I'm not going to let someone die because I didn't have a mask, but it would have been really nice to have one of these. This is a little tiny roll of duct tape. You have no idea how many things duct tape comes in handy for. I mean, probably wouldn't go around and put this over like the lights in a hotel room. You should probably use electrical tape for that, and that would be a handy thing to have in here as well. But a little piece of duct tape. This is called Leuko tape. This is a tape I actually use professionally. Fabulous for if you're getting a hot spot or blisters or anything like that. Just a little roll upon itself. This thing is like the Swiss Army knife of sporks. So it has the spoon and the fork, which is very handy, but it has a set of wrenches, it has a screwdriver, it has a can opener, a bottle opener, and right here, it's not a knife, but it's a little sharp edge, like if you had to cut a string or something. This thing is amazing. So you can actually use this to reduce waste, but you can also use it for a whole bunch of handy things, because when you travel, you can't bring a Swiss Army knife because it has a blade in it. This you can bring. This is like the world's tiniest chapstick, but it also has sunscreen in it. So in a pinch, so for someone like me, I always have to have chapstick. So if I ever forgot it, this would be the first thing. But also, do you see how fair I am? I have to have sunblock. So in a pinch, not that I want to rub chapstick all over my face, but this could be really good to like a little spot that might be exposed. I'm not joking, I'll burn in 15 minutes. It's crazy. This is an itty bitty pair of tweezers. This is very handy. I mean, you can pluck rogue hairs and stuff, but ultimately I generally use this for removing splinters. I've actually used this in a situation where I was backpacking and a guy, he basically impaled himself with a piece of projectile wood, and I had to pull this out of his web space using this. These came in handy. One more hair tie because if I have pigtails, I need two. This is an electrolyte packet. You can use, there's all different versions of this. I just throw one in there. If someone is starting to bonk or lose it, this is very handy. This is an itty bitty sewing kit. The needle is good obviously for sewing, but the other thing it's really good for is removing things like splinters as well. You can burn it with a match, rub it in rubbing alcohol to sterilize it or make it clean. And there's also two buttons in here. And another thing that isn't in here that I need to replace is a safety pin. A safety pin is good for tons of different things. This is a teeny tiny piece of a repair kit. It's actually for my camping pad, but you could use this on like a down jacket, a backpack, etc. if you get a rip. This thing has seen better days, but this is a first aid cream. It's like an antibiotic ointment. You can see some of these have been in here for a while. Sting relief, so if someone gets stung by a bee or a wasp. So these might not be as familiar to people, but these are called butterfly strips. So if someone gets a pretty decent laceration, this could be a reasonable substitute for stitches, at least in the short term, to approximate the edges of the wound. These are alcohol prep pads. This is obviously used to clean. You know, it's going to sting if you do it over a wound, but depending on where you are, they can suck it up. But also you can clean your hands with this, as well as you can clean objects like the tweezers or the needle if needed. This isn't something that most people would have. You know, I've worked at a hospital. This is called Xeroform. It's a Vaseline impregnated gauze. So this is great for keeping a wound moist and then bandaging it. I have a total of 4 different Band-Aids in here, ranging from really big to teeny weeny, depending on your problem. This is a twist tie. You never know when a twist tie is going to come in handy. A bobby pin. 2 buttons. A little teeny tiny binder clip. You can use this for holding papers together, holding a seam together so you don't have a wardrobe malfunction, or all different things. This is for blisters. It's a blister pack. This is where the real magic happens. Two different kinds of cough drops. So if you are hacking in public, you might as well have Ebola now. You can't cough in public. People get really freaked out. So this could help with that. Also, if your breath is less than fresh and you're going to be in an environment where you might not like that, cough drop will work in a pinch. This is Dayquil and NyQuil. If you get sick, it might get you to the next pharmacy to get what you're looking for. Now this has all kinds of stuff in it. I'm actually going to show you a picture here. In order to know what's in here, I've created a photograph of every type of pill, what it is, the appropriate dose, and then I have taken a picture of it, and that is stored both in my photos as well as in my Google Drive. So I have access to it wherever we are. Most of these pills I can identify without any difficulty, but the one that looks kind of alike is actually the Tylenol and the Cipro. I need to give a preface to this. There is a real possibility you could get in trouble with this. Like, this is amoxicillin, Cipro is a prescription medications, or really any medications. If you take them on an airplane, they may have a problem with you doing it. I have never had a problem with bringing a baggie or like a little tube of different medications through, but you've been warned fairly. If it's a prescription, you probably should keep it in the bottle. Okay, so let's talk through the different types of medications that I bring with me. You should accommodate to whatever is necessary for you, your family, whomever you're trying to take care of when you're traveling. I have Tylenol or acetaminophen. I have ibuprofen or Advil. I have Benadryl, and I cannot remember the generic name for Benadryl. I have Dramamine, and that one's mostly for me because I didn't know I got motion sickness until I was throwing up in Haiti on a boat one time, and I didn't know what the heck was happening. So as far as some prescriptions ones, I have some Cipro. I will tell you, Cipro has saved my entire family from waterborne illness. When we are in Haiti, unfortunately, it's really, really common. And at the first sign of that like gurgling mess, that has saved my entire family from what we call the Haitian sensation. I have fluconazole, which is for a yeast infection. You only need to take one of those a week. I don't actually struggle with that, but the last thing I want to be is on a vacation and something like that crop up and trying to find a doctor. So when you travel for internationally or for mission work, you should go to your physician because there's certain types of medications they'll give you. So another one that they give me is amoxicillin. So depending on the type of infection you have, amoxicillin and Cipro would be actually used for different things. People don't always realize this, that different kinds of bacteria are either resistant to or more responsive to different types of antibiotics. So we actually bring both of those when we travel. Even if I don't have the full bottle, I have enough to get started and then to get to a doctor to get a full prescription. So that rather than waiting a day or two and getting really, really sick, you can nip it in the bud, especially if you know you've had an exposure to like waterborne illness. The other thing that I have is a malaria medication. Now there's a bunch of different malaria medications, preventative, that I have actually used over the years of going to Haiti, and I have had varying responses to all of them. The one that I personally don't use anymore is doxycycline because it gives me heart palpitations, so we're going to avoid that. There's a few different versions. We just happen to have one version that you take daily, and again, I have enough to get us started, but I don't have enough for a full prescription, so we'd have to follow up. I also have a different type of antihistamine. It's called a Chlortab. So Benadryl will make you drowsy. This one will not. So depending on what's going on. So I have an anaphylactic allergy to pork. You know, God forbid I have an exposure, I have an EpiPen. But if I do, I have to pop like a small handful of Benadryl in order to reduce the risk of going into anaphylaxis. But if I'm just having some allergies, I might take a Chlortab instead. The other thing that I have in there, because you've heard my stories about not so great water, is we have some water purification tablets. Now, if you've ever used these, they don't taste very good, but if it's the difference between getting waterborne illness and slightly janky water, I'll take janky water all day long. Teeny little iodine tablets, and you have to put 2 in for every quart, and you have to let it sit for 30 minutes. And then it will improve the water. There's a couple of different ways to do that. Of course, if you can boil it, if you have a filter, if you have a UV pen, and even technically a couple of drops of bleach would do the same thing in a pinch. But educate yourself on how you would do that. If you have access to clean water, obviously drink clean water instead. And then the last thing that I have in here is I actually have at least the beginning of a dose pack of prednisone. For the exact same reason that, most of the things that I've used in this have been when I've been in Haiti, because we were exposed to so many things. So when I've been in Haiti, I was so eaten up by bed bugs once that I started having difficulty breathing. I started to have like an allergic reaction, and thank goodness we had some prednisone to get started on in order to keep me from, having a really serious reaction. All of these things, you wouldn't use these unless you've gotten them as a prescription from your physician. But if you're traveling internationally, or you're traveling to areas where there's a lot of, mosquito-borne illness, waterborne illness, etc., or, sanitation issues, your primary care physician should be familiar with travel-based medications, and you can ask for these prescriptions before you go. I think that's everything. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it all out so you can see how much fits in this little tiny container, and then I'm going to pack it all up so you can see how I fit it all. So now you've seen this teeny tiny little travel emergency kit, everyday carry, or I call it my problem solving kit. If you want to, check out this other video where I go into more detail about an expanded kit, and depending on the type of environment that you're in, some of these other things might be really handy for you as well.